2 of Has It Aged Like Milk or Has It Aged Like Wine? So on part 2, it's going to be old Bobby over there. It's your turn. We do have only one prop on the table, but that's because we couldn't. I don't own the other one, your wine. And I believe you wanted to, on this one, you wanted to start wine first.
So we're going to do five minutes of wine
Okay.
and 25 minutes of milk, because it's easier for me to complain than it is to praise.
Mm-hmm.
And also the milk, there's a lot of
There's a lot of milk
there.
in that jug. A lot of rancid milk in that jug.
That's right.
Okay, so that's cool. Let's why don't you tell the fine people what game has aged like a fine wine to you?
Okay, so because you spend all your money on things like Chrono Trigger, you don't have time to buy games like this.
Look at that. Well, there you go. That's your. Oh man, we've lost it.
So
that was worth it.
That was good.
That was worth it.
So the game is Aerobiz.
Yes.
Again, with our fine production quality here. Okay, Aerobiz is a management simulator made by, how do you say the name, Brian?
Koei.
Koei. Came out in 1991 or 92. Anybody who knows me and is watching this show right now is like, oh, yeah, I mean, of course. Like,
yeah.
I am the Aerobiz guy.
This is a round peg in a round hole.
And almost every person's life who knows me and has known me since I was a kid, in part because before this game even came out, there was a little snippet of it in an episode of Nintendo Power. And I saw it and I was like, you get to run your own airline? Sign me up.
Yeah.
And I bought it day one.
Well, didn't you have some sort of family type attachment to the airline industry too? Wasn't that another motivating factor?
Yeah, good memory on your part. So my dad worked for McDonnell Douglas before it merged with Boeing. So when I first started playing the game, I was like, I'm gonna only buy the planes that my daddy works on. So I would try to run my airline with MD 10s and 11s and McDonnell Douglas planes. And then I very quickly learned, as McDonnell Douglas learned, that Boeing is the better company.
just full stop. It's the better company all the way around.
And I abandoned my family principles and loyalties and started only using Boeing aircraft. And then I think in 1997, Boeing and McDonnell Douglas merged anyway. So now there's only Boeing. But yeah, I've got it in my blood, the airline management simulation. But this game was really ahead of its time in a lot of ways. You plan routes and then you send airplanes between the routes. You're trying to become a big business. You're trying to get market share. And the way to do that is to get passengers on. So you have to take into account principally fuel. Fuel costs are a huge part of it. So you would find planes that have long ranges. So you could do like 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 mile flights. But they have they're very fuel efficient. You would you could do marketing campaigns, like advertising campaigns, to try to get people to use your airline. There's even a rudimentary stock market in the game where you could buy stock in lower level airlines and then watch that stock increase over time. You could play it for players, which we would do, and I would create Bear Air for
Bear Air. So, it sounds a little nudie. Kind of like our plane's Bear.
Join the Mile High Club.
Yeah,
Bear
Air.
Yeah. So, but anyway, and I would try to convince my friends, like, hey guys, Friday night, let's all go to this guy's house and then play Aerobiz all night.
Oh, I bet that you were the most popular kid on the block.
Yeah, so I like to think I was pretty cool. I had a lot going for
me. Old Aerobiz Bob. Well, I know I know what your lower third's going to be on this one.
Aerobiz Bob is right. Yeah, we would call them Aerobiz all-nighters. And, as you can only do as a teenager, there'd be vats of popcorn and Coca-Cola and
all the good stuff.
Yeah, and Aerobiz. And tons of hot chicks, too. They were all there. Yeah, lots of hot chicks, of course.
So, okay, real quick, I want to I have eBayed this bad boy. So, original Aerobiz, not Supersonic, although I have Supersonic here, too. On eBay is trading. It's around an $80 game nowadays. Supersonic is more expensive. Complete Supersonic looks like around an average of like $120 to $150. So just to give you an idea of how much this stuff is now worth, it's pretty crazy. But it is what it is.
All right, so if you like games like SimCity, obviously would be the obvious one. Or really any simulation game, even something like Roller Coaster Tycoon, which became really popular in the late 90s.
Yeah.
This game is for you. So if you have a Super Nintendo or a way to get Super Nintendo games, I don't have too much to say about it except that it's great, and it's still great, and not enough people played it, so it is aged like wine. I've played it recently, and it's awesome.
Well, I would also say before, and I know you are itching, just chomping at the bit to talk shit on this game that you're going to talk shit on upcoming. But I think it's also important to note with Aerobiz, like there's nothing really else like it now. In terms of like, I mean, I'm sure there is like some hardcore, like, you know, airline business simulating stuff that comes out of like Croatia or something like that. I'm sure of that. But because I also like Aerobiz, and you were the one that got me to like Aerobiz, because I'm never going to touch that game before your influence. But it is like it's so snappy and it's so quick. Like imagine, and I think SimCity is a perfect analog to it. But just imagine like a more sped up version of SimCity. Like you see progress really quickly, and when you're playing, especially like a multiplayer setup, like that really helps make the game fun. And that's what I think for me, that what makes it a special game and why it is still really good, is it's just fun. And like you wouldn't think in a million years that, you know, an airline business simulator and B, a Koei game from Super Nintendo, because I have tried. Like Nobunaga's Ambition, all of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I've tried and tried and tried. I want to love those games so much, and I just can't do it. They are watching paint dry to me. But Aerobiz is the one that you know sticks up head and shoulders for me as well. So
when you turn it on, it tells you it's from the Koei's Executive Series.
Oh yeah,
so that's how you know it's fancy.
It's pure class. It's
so
pure class
you try. There's an actual ending to the game. You try to connect the world, and so that's fun. And the combination of competition when you're playing with your friends, and then just building. There's just something in the human brain about building and growing and all that stuff, progression. And Aerobiz it strikes a nice chord where you're opening new routes, you're watching your profits go up, buying a whole bunch of airplanes, seeing if you could maximize margin. I mean, this doesn't appeal to everybody necessarily, but it's a wider swath than you might think.
For sure.
So the game holds up really well, in part because the building sort of mechanic that's sort of built into all of our brains, combined with, you know, the competitiveness, but also it's just like the art style is really good. It's got some friendly music to it. Really, the only thing that's unfriendly about it is the boardroom you have to deal with, and they're always yelling at you about where they want you to open flights and things like that.
They demand perfection.
We need to open a route to Tehran. It's like, what? Really, guys? I don't know if that's the way we should be going with this airline.
Well, commerce needs to happen there now. No, totally. I agree wholeheartedly on your wine choice, on your whiny. Yeah. But let's get into that Milker guy. I know you have a lot to say about this game. What game is it?
This entire episode is sort of been orchestrated around this moment.
It's a platform for you to do this. That's your camera. So, Heavy Rain.
This is one of the worst experiences I've ever had with a video game ever.
Ever. That's so cool. So I'm gonna just take the training wheels off for you.
Okay.
But so I want to say my part in this. I played Heavy Rain when it first came out, with the exception of a couple glaring things where you're just like kind of scratching your head, like, why is this happening? And there's a couple of those that I'm sure you're gonna do a wonderful job of pointing out.
Yes.
So this came out at a time where like I was more like interested in the idea of like a cinematic game experience. Like I'm not anymore. Like I don't really give a hoot about it at all. Like if they come on, they're good. Like a Last of Us or an Uncharted, that's fine. But this is like there's like almost no action in it. And so in the last part I talked about like the bad voice acting that I love in Shenmue. This game kind of hits me there too. It's a lot of native French speaking people who are trying to put on an American accent. And oh man, do I love it. But I love it for the same reasons that you, I'm sure, hate it. So like that's to be said. But I haven't played that game since it originally came out.
2010.
2010, yeah. And I've also never played. The only other game of Quantic Dreams that I played was way back in the day, Indigo Prophecy, on PS2, and I have skipped all of the other games. So I never played Beyond Two Souls. I never played Detroit. And there's another one. Isn't there another one, or am I naming them all?
No, it's those 3 plus the Star Wars game they're working on right now.
Oh, okay.
That's supposed to be different, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's not like a story, like a choose your own adventure type.
It's
deal.
not. Yeah, it's not like that.
So anyway, Indigo Prophecy also probably doesn't hold up for whatever that's worth, but it did have nudity in it in a time where there was not a lot of nudity in games. Okay. I know this guy has nudity in it.
Oh yeah,
and I'm sure you'll touch on that and how shoehorned in it is. But anyway. So yes, full disclosure, he's about to totally abuse this game that at one point in time I would have said like, no, it's a great game. So go ahead and destroy me and my taste from 2010.
So the story here is that, as has been chronicled on this show before, I played nothing but World of Warcraft for many, many years. And while I was doing that, I missed out on a little thing called PlayStation exclusives and really just PlayStation games in general, a lot of console gaming in general.
Yeah.
So when the PlayStation 5 came out, sort of after a lot of years working, raising kids, things like that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to get back into video games. Going to get a PlayStation 5. Thanks to you, I was lucky enough to get one on launch day. I get it. I start playing PlayStation games. Oh my God, there's so many PlayStation games to play. There's all these exclusives. They're all awesome. So PlayStation has a package, the PlayStation Plus package or whatever. It's like 20 free games. It's like, okay, great. God of War, that's going to be pretty cool. There's like all these other games. And one of those was Detroit. And I was like, oh, okay, this looks, I'll try it. So I played the very first level of Detroit Become Human. And it was spectacular. And I was like, this is incredible. I haven't experienced this in a game before. What a really fun way to have a video game. I'm going to put a pause right here in this moment. And I'm not going to play any more of this game. It's so different and so interesting to me that I'm going to look up this developer and I'm going to go play their other games, which are supposed to be just like Detroit. And I can do the evolution of those games and sort of follow along with the developers. They grew and changed over time.
Sure.
Which is exactly what I eventually did. And full disclosure, Detroit's a good game. Not a perfect game, but a good game. And a mid to high 80s game. It's fine. The game before it, Beyond Two Souls, is a mid to high 70s game. It's okay. It's okay. You could see the progression. But I went all the way back to Heavy Rain and started playing Heavy Rain. And by the end of it, I was like, what the hell did I was so disgusted with it. I wanted to not play the other 2 games. And it's only a testament to how much I hate myself that I went ahead and went through with all of that, including platinuming Heavy Rain itself.
Well, that's your sickness. That's all that is. And for the record, I think I also have a platinum in Heavy Rain because I was pretty enamored with it when it first came out. Again, for some of the reasons that you think are bad, and that's fine, they are bad. But like, I like bad shit. I don't know. My brain works differently. Like the movie The Room is a perfect movie, and it's awful in every definition of the word.
You're tearing me apart, Brian.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to jump in here real quick about this. Do you? Because I think you have an easy answer for this. If you would have, so when Heavy Rain comes out, there's nothing like it at the time. Period. Do you think if you would have played it at that time, when there's no other context of like a narrative focused game, do you think you would have been as hard on it as you are now?
No.
Okay.
Because, and this is a kind of a theme that we've talked about in a few different episodes on this show, you end up granting games a large swath of credibility or latitude or whatever you want to call it when they're innovating, when they're bringing new stuff to the table that you've never seen before.
Yeah. Even
if it's done in kind of a clumsy way or a crude way. You end up saying like, well, hey, that's still a new thing, and I haven't seen that before, and so that's really cool that they're doing that.
Yeah,
and that still exists in video games, and in other mediums, it's really hard. We haven't seen a new music genre in a long time, right? Movies are like running out of ways to innovate.
Boy, are they more than anything else.
Absolutely, but video games, you can still do that, and you can still be rewarded when you do that. So when a game like Heavy Rain comes out, even if large parts of the game, as I will demonstrate, are crap, because it was doing the narrative parts of the game, the gameplay parts of the game in a cinematic way that hadn't been attempted before. Very easy to see why people would play that and be like, wow, we're getting closer and closer to a Hollywood-like experience in the game. And almost every person that I talked to, almost every person who played this game back in 2010 and hadn't played it since said, oh, that game's awesome. What did you think?
Yeah.
Because that's what they remember. And I was like, well, let me tell you what I think.
Boy, do I want to tell you what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the ABCs of Great Gift Basket Ideas, hosted by Sandy Gill, America's queen of the gift basket industry.
Sandy!
And now, your hostess for the ABCs of Great Gift Basket Ideas, Sandy Gill.
And now let me show you one of my very favorites. It's very easy to do, and I get rave reviews every time. I'm going to show you some of the product that we use for this, which I call Sparkling Nights. These are some of the products that we're going to use. Chocolates, a chocolate champagne.
Come on now, girl.
Candy. These are also candies that I've used. Notice these are casino chips. These are cards. That's because I've themed this with a Las Vegas
This basket's not for me.
theme.
I lost everything on gambling. I lost
chocolate
everything I was ever worth on
And then I
gambling.
have my Scotch tape. I also have something that we can tie this off with. You can actually buy this at your local hardware store.
No way. There's no way she did that.
I have a heat gun, and I have some wire that we'll use. And now we're going to put this creation together. The first thing that we're going to do is start by laying this box down. If you'll notice, I've used a lot of boxes. It makes it very easy to put together.
What?
Now, you're going to be an architect.
What?
Next, we're going to put the box of cookies. More Scotch tape so that we're secure. I'm going to come up the side just a little bit with this. You can see that I'm going to secure it from here, from my chocolate champagne to my box, okay? My chocolate casino chips. Do you get the idea I like chocolate? I'm going to place that right in the box.
Yeah.
Secure it down to the front of your box, and you can place a little bit of the tape right here also. Now notice that when I use these, they're chocolate cards. I'm going to put this at an angle. You notice I'm not putting it flat. I'm putting it just a little bit at an angle. That gives it more depth.
People buy with their eyes.
And just a little bit of tape does that.
The first 30 minutes of the game are you being a suburban dad.
Yeah.
The entire game for that first half an hour is like you're literally brushing your teeth, and it's like move the controller to move the toothbrush back and forth, and move the analog to put your pants on. And it's like, again, this is supposed to be, I guess, a different way of playing games. Like you're actually controlling him.
Right.
But it's obviously bad. Like, who the hell is going to be interested by putting your pants on and brushing your teeth?
They said the same thing about Shenmue QuickTime events, and now play God of War. They're still there. They're still there. Continue.
So then you go downstairs and you have sort of a fight with your wife, and then you're like playing with your kids, and it's supposed to set up like you're the sort of perfect, idyllic suburban family.
Yeah.
And it's all like very like pastel, bright colors, and it's like everything's great, guys. And then so that's all boring and dull. And there's like literally about 30 minutes of that.
Right.
Oh, and then there's a part where your wife asks you to set the table, and then you can just not set the table, or you could set it incorrectly, and then she yells at you. Or you could just not set it, and then she asks you to find the dishes, and you have trouble finding. We're playing a video game, and it's like you're getting in trouble for not finding the dishes, or the gameplay is finding the dishes.
Right.
Not great gameplay.
I don't think you would like Animal Crossing.
It's just not super compelling content.
Yeah.
Okay, second scene, you're now in the mall. Okay, I'm not going to do every scene.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only because we're time limited.
Right.
Second scene, you're at the mall, and spoiler alert, your son dies. And he dies in a really stupid way. First of all, he runs away from you, and he refuses to come back to you even after calling him. And it's like, well, you know what?
Say it. Go ahead.
I'm not going to say it.
The best part about this thing that you're talking about is like this kid is flipping out. And this is one of the ones where I was rolling my eyes at this too when I first played it. He's flipping out over getting a balloon.
That's right.
And it's like a modern, like, dude, like, I know it's like 2010. Like, you got a PSP or you have I think iPad's out. Like, why are you flipping out over a balloon? I know why. French. That's
I know. Like, it's like 1941 or whatever. It's
like, balloon. Anyway, continue.
This is the only thing I'm going to get all year is a balloon. So then there's like a car accident that looks like it takes place at about 5 miles an hour.
Yes.
And somehow you find out that your son dies, even though you dive in front of a car to attempt to save him. Okay, and then it cuts to, and it's so like transparent. And now it's like immediately the colors are dark.
Yeah.
And it's raining. and you're in this incredibly drab house that looks like it's like a serial killer would live there. And then there's a scene where it's like your other son, the one who didn't die, is depressed, and you need to help him with his homework, and you have to give him dinner and all that. And so it's like, okay, aside from the obviousness of, it's like we're changing the colors and the tone now, we're like a good hour into this video game, and the only interesting thing that happened was incredibly annoying. A kid died, and you couldn't even do anything about it. Okay, fine. So the entire game is about a serial killer who then captures that son, and the son who lived. Yeah. And then it's a race against time for you to try to catch the serial killer, you as the father of the son.
Right.
So first, I hope I'm taking these in the right order, but to just reveal the motivations of the serial killer that you find out at the end, the serial killer who himself was he was abandoned by his parents.
Yes, that's right.
And so he wants to find a good father. So he kidnaps a child to see if his father would do anything to save the child. This is incredibly stupid because as the father, you just threw yourself in front of the car that ended up killing the other son.
Yeah.
In an effort to save him.
In like in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah. So it's like, didn't I prove I was good enough for that when I threw myself in front of a car to save my other son? Does that not mean I'm a good enough dad? So anyway, so then second, so this is true. This is unbelievable. I hope this blows your mind because so as the father protagonist, when you're playing with your son in the park, the one who lived and eventually gets kidnapped, and then you have some kind of blackout episode, and then he's just gone. Yeah. And then he's captured by the serial killer. And I remember thinking like, well, what the hell? It's the middle of the day. There's other people in this park. Yeah, you had a blackout episode, but if you took your kid to a park right now with other people around and you just like forgot about him for a little bit, he's not going to be kidnapped, probably. Probably. Well, we could try that.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah. We'll use your son, not mine.
No, what? You've got two. That's not fair.
I got to back up. Yeah. All right. So, but it's never really given an explanation as to how the kidnapping took place. And that always bothered me. Yeah. Because especially when you see the reveal of the kidnapper, it's like, this kid isn't like, it's not like you're taking a stroller with an infant in it. It's like, this is a kid who could cry and scream and do all that stuff.
Like 12 years old or something.
Yeah. 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 Old enough that he could make a scene in front of all these strangers.
Witnesses.
And say like, I'm being kidnapped. Right. Stranger danger, whatever. So that's annoying to me. But then part of the B plot of the game is that they had it set up so that your dead son would communicate with you, the father, telepathically to help give you clues to help you find the captured living son. But that they thought that was so stupid or whatever that months before the game was going to come out, they just removed that entire plot, the entire B plot. Right. They just cut it from the game.
Wasn't there? And if I remember right, they had something to do with like there's like butterflies related to the supernatural components of the game. And like you would see like this like glowing butterfly, and if I remember right, there's still a couple sections that are left in the game where you see like this weird ghosty butterfly that is never ever explained ever.
Yeah, I think you might that might be right. I don't. That's not on my list of complaints, but
that was the other one though that at the time it was like okay, like,
and that's what that is.
Yeah.
But
I remember being like, this makes no sense. What's going on here?
Yeah, there's a moment where you go into like one of your hallucinations that you have, and then when you come out of the hallucination, you're standing in the middle of the street and you're holding an origami, like a paper origami crane.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be like the mark of the killer.
Yeah.
And so you're made to think that you're the killer. Turns out you're not. But then it's like, well, then how the hell did you get the origami crane? You don't know origami. So if you're not the killer, then like who made the origami crane? So, and all of that was supposed to be related to the supernatural B plot that they just cut out. So there's no real explanation. It's just left as a plot hole. So it's incredibly annoying. Okay. So next, so I got two more major things to complain about. I think two more things. So you end up having to throw yourself as a protagonist through these series of basically Saw-like torture devices to try to show your son how much you love him.
This is the thing I remember most about the game.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I know you're an absolute masochist. Yeah. So, or sadist, I should say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting it right. Yeah.
So one of them is like you go to an electric plant and there's like and you have to go into a chamber and there's a bunch of glass and you've got to crawl across this glass.
Yep. Yeah, remember that one.
And then the killer, I guess, shuts the chamber behind you. But then it's like, so the killer went in there and laid all this empty glass around just for you to have to come back in there. It's just so elaborate.
Well, and he walked backwards when he did it, though, you see. So he went broken glass, walk backwards, broken glass, walk backwards.
And then the killer is like twice the size of you, and
Yeah.
it's like you're having trouble kind of squeezing through this thing.
He's like a 400-pound man.
So I want to see that where this lard ass is
I didn't
like,
even think of that, yeah.
yeah, and he's like, "Ugh, it's worth it. This guy's going to
I'll
prove he's
show
a good
him."
dad.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. All right, so that's also annoying. There's a scene in there when they're revealing the backstory of the killer and him being abandoned by his parents, where they show the killer and I think it's his then brother, and they're like playing through a construction site, and then one of them gets trapped, and the parents don't come. And so anyway, but before that scene starts, you are the protagonist of the game, and you're talking to a groundskeeper at a cemetery, and he's like, "Oh, let me tell you the story of how this tragedy happened." And then they cut to that scene. It's like, well, now I have to do gameplay that's going to lead to a child death. Like that's just
it's weird.
That's just a bummer.
Yeah.
So you're like running through this construction site, and the whole time you're like, okay, which one of these kids is going to die, and how horrible is it going to be? And the whole thing is just like a true bummer. Okay. And then the next thing, and this is arguably my biggest complaint. And normally I wouldn't complain about a good sex scene in anything, but I'm complaining about it here. So you end up meeting this like awesome looking kind of oh god, what's
You're talking about the drug lord guy, right?
No, the woman, the love interest. Who's not a drug lord.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and she's a kind of a manic pixie dream girl, but she's on a motorcycle.
She looks like Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order.
Yeah. And anyway, she's super interested in you and staying at a motel you guys meet at a motel. You're staying at a motel. I can't remember why that is, but you are. And so anyway, you meet her and you're talking to her, and there's like this sort of bond between you two. And then eventually there's like a love scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. By the time this love scene happens, you have broken ribs. You have like a punctured lung. You have bandages all around your body. You have a severed finger with a bandage that's bleeding through. And you have a son who has been kidnapped by a serial killer, and you're told he's going to die in like 5 hours.
Yep.
And then like, but anyway, let's bang.
Yeah. Well, look, people cope in a variety of different ways, okay? And who are you? Who are you to judge? No, I remember this scene. Where I thought you were going is where that same character, she goes into she meets up with like a drug lord guy.
Oh yeah.
And then they also okay. So I'll let you have it. This is your therapy, not mine. But go for it.
Okay. So then, and also by the way, this love interest, you've known her like a day.
Yeah.
I think, and she, by the way, suspects you of being the killer, and then you tell her that you're not, and then, or you tell her that you're afraid that you are, and anyway, and then so on top of everything else, on top of your injuries, on top of the severed finger, it's like you guys just met. It's like, God, what kind of taste in men do you have, lady, that you're just like, he might be a serial killer.
Bad. The taste is bad.
He might be a serial killer or a child murderer of his own son.
Right.
And he's got this severed finger that's bleeding through. But anyway.
Yeah. It's so good.
All right. So then the scene that you're talking about, so now the female love interest, she decides to sort of take you up on your cause.
Yeah.
And she's trying to like get information to help you, like an undercover journalist.
She's sleuthing around, yeah.
And so she goes to this club where this drug kingpin is, and she's trying to get information on the child. And then so what she does is she kind of sluts herself up a little bit, and it shows you like you go into the bathroom and you undo the top button on your shirt, and then you actually rip your skirt off to make it shorter, and then you start like very overtly flirting with this like evil drug kingpin.
Yeah, where you have, as I remember, you have like full player control of how you flirt and like what you and all of that stuff.
Yeah. But all of it ends with you in his room,
Right.
and you're forced to say basically like flirtatious things to him. Then when you get to his room, the first thing he says is something like, "Hey baby, dance for me," or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Oh, actually, I think I'm going to go." And it's so jarring because while you were in character trying to get into his room to begin with, you're saying all these flirtatious things and all that. And then the second that you get in there, he asks you to do the exact thing that you would expect him to do in that situation, which is just be sexy. And then you're like, oh, actually, no. And it's like, well, what did you think he was going to do once you actually got into the room? I'm not saying like, you should, like she should have participated in that. But if your whole goal is to get information, you're going to have to keep the act up a little bit longer, because predictably, when she says, oh, actually, I'm going to go now, then he's like, oh, no, you're not, baby. And he's a drug kingpin. But then an even more unrealistic thing happens, I think, which is that he pulls a gun on her and then points it at her.
I don't remember that at all.
Yes. And then there's like a whole combat scene, and then you end up killing him.
Oh, now I remember that. Yeah.
And it's like, look, I'm not sure how drug kingpins work. Maybe there's such egomaniacs that's like a realistic thing. But if you have that power of wealth and fame, why wouldn't you just let the girl go and then go get the next like drugged up girl to go, who won't say no?
Pablo Escobar built a lot of community infrastructure, many soccer parks, and he did a lot of good for the community of Medellin.
Yeah. So anyway, so that whole scene happens. Then there's another scene where they give you sort of a false lead into some guy who you think is the killer, and he's not actually the killer. And then the game ends with you actually finding out that one of the other detectives investigating the case is actually the guy. Oh! Actually, saying that there's one other thing, one other incredibly dumb game bit. While you're the detective investigating the killer, you come across this woman who's lost a child to the serial killer and has another baby, an infant who's like 6 months old. So part of the game.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you walk in on her and she's just attempted suicide.
Yeah.
And you kind of bring her to, and you help, and you bandage her up, and you sort of bring her back to life. Then while she's resting, the baby starts crying. And so you go out into the living room and you start rocking the baby.
And you're controlling all that too. I remember
and
this
so,
part.
dumb gameplay. You're literally rocking a baby to
shoehorn
sleep.
gameplay. Yeah.
And you've got to like do the movements the right way to keep the baby. And I think there's a trophy tied around that. It was so annoying. You can't like let the baby start crying. But then when the woman wakes up, so you're like, hey, are you okay? You just tried to kill yourself. That's not good. And then you have a conversation, and then it ends, and she's like, okay, I will be fine. Just, leave me alone, please. And you're just like, all right, well, see you later. I'll just be on my way.
Have a good one.
And it's like, hey, you're supposed to be a detective, even though you turn out to be a serial killer. But still, at that moment, you don't know that he's a serial killer.
Right.
And it's like, dude, this woman just attempted suicide. She's got an infant in the living room.
And you're just going to go ahead and just jam on
She's got some bandages on her arms. It's like, you think you should call like a friend or something? Like maybe she shouldn't be alone.
Like these things just work themselves out.
Maybe this baby shouldn't be alone.
I remember, that character, that actress is the most egregious, like French speaking American actress. Yeah, she's, I am from Chicago, Illinois. Trust me, I'm an American. No issue about it at all. Yeah, she was great. Probably my favorite thing in the whole game, as we talk about.
It's like a Simpsons joke or something.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Bad impression.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So those are all the gameplay or the story critiques. And it was just awful, and it's plotting, and it's slow, and it's all that stuff. Separately, since you just mentioned it, let's mention the voice acting. It is god awful. I am very forgiving of bad voice acting. I don't need it to be great, but it needs to be better than this. It's so bad, in fact, that there are at least 10 different YouTube videos just making fun of the voice acting.
God, I love it.
Including internet or YouTube hero Donkey just recently did a whole thing on voice acting and used this as one of the examples of the worst voice acting that exists in games.
Well, buddy, you're negating a lot. If you played TurboGrafx CD games and Sega CD games, you would be singing a way different song.
Yeah.
This stuff is bad. It's very bad. But like, it's not that bad compared to where it was. That's my main point with it. But I 100% love the terrible voice acting in the game. It's like the biggest and best feature of the game to me. And I thought that then, and I still think that now. But I get it. Not everyone has my broken brain. But continue.
Okay, so the last. Oh wait, hold on. Checking my notes. The last bit on here. That's right. This is the last note I have. So you as the protagonist, you go see a psychiatrist. And he diagnoses you with schizophrenia. And I looked this up online. It's actually not schizophrenia. You have dissociative personality disorder. That's why you have the blackouts. So even that part of the game was wrong. I don't know if they actually did, if they talked to the developers, if they actually talked to any actual psychologists, consulted with them. Yeah. But
that's a big no. I'm assuming.
One of the fundamental components of the game is like your diagnosis is a schizophrenic, and you're not actually a schizophrenic.
That's such a cool thing to get all the way wrong.
So between the bad voice acting, the incredible plot holes created from them cutting stuff out, the unrealistic scenarios involving the traps, and then the suicide woman, that sex scene is just particularly offensive to me. And did I mention the voice acting again?
Yes, you
and
did.
then definitely the voice acting.
There was put some shine on this game, on this turd that you've very educatedly shown to be a turd. There's one part of the game that like I still remember really vividly, and I think it was maybe even DLC, but it was that female character, wasn't her? I think her name was Madison, the girl, the pixie.
I think that is
girl.
right. Yeah.
So she ends up in her research trying to help out with answering the questions of what's going on. She ends up in like the basement of this like other serial killer's house.
Oh yeah,
and that whole sequence is awesome. Like,
yeah, that's true. Actually, that's why I didn't bring it up.
It's the best part of the game.
It's the best part of the game.
And if they just would have stuck with that,
yeah,
we might not be having this wonderful time here.
Yeah, I mean, it is an incredible coincidence, and again, her taste in men. Yeah. She's sort of attracted to the protagonist, who may or may not be a serial killer. Then she goes to a house, and then gets kidnapped by an actual serial killer, unrelated to the serial killer who's the actual serial killer
on
the
the bubble separate serial killer that's in the
game. The game makes you think like 1 out of 3 people are serial killers in this world, and then she gets tied down to a gurney table. It's very horror movie like, and then you got to kind of escape.
You have to escape it, and becomes like an escape room time.
The whole thing is very, very cool, and that part of the game definitely does not suck. Every other part of the game
totally sucks. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I
feel better.
I can see it. I can see the weight lift.
Like a runner's high. It's great.
Well, that was expertly This milker was expertly milked by the one and only Uncle Bob. I think I think we're gonna wrap it here, but we're gonna come back on this. Did it age like milk or did it age like wine? Because I think you and I can both come up with examples of many. But one of them that I won't come up with, okay? And that's more games that have terrible voice acting, because I cannot get enough. Please do more bad voice acting in your games.
That is your wine? Games that age like wine, bad voice acting games?
Yeah, let me tell you about Book E's 2 or E's Book 2 on TurboGrafx CD. Those people barely know how to read at all. It's great. So anyway, let's give a GH on this one. Gentleman's handshake.
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Now the next step that we're going to do, we're going to wrap our sparkling night. Let me show you an idea, another trade secret. This is simply a Lazy Susan that you can pick up at any hardware store, kitchen store, but it makes it very easy to work on. You take your Lazy Susan. I'm going to show you the side and the back of the sparkling night that we just made. You can set it on your Lazy Susan.
Don't even get her going again.
Now here's the side view and the back view of what we just made. This is actually shrink film. It's folded in the center. I'm going to open it up so that it's wide. We're going to move our gift out of the center of the table so that we have a little more room to work with. And then we're going to lay this almost at an angle. You don't want it square. Almost at an angle. And the next thing that you need to do is, before you get started, cut your little twist ties so that you have them ready. Just going to twist
the only thing I ever
right
wanted
here.
For in my life was security.
There. Now that's the first stage of wrapping our gift. Now we're going to put on the finishing touches to give it a lot of pizzazz. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some iridescent paper, and I'm actually going to crinkle it up like this in a ball. And no, I didn't destroy it. Look at the different colors that it gives to this.
No.
Now, the next thing that we're going to do, as I said earlier, this is shrink film. We're going to use a heat gun, which will shrink the film.
What the?
Notice that I keep the gun moving at all times, because if you don't, you'll burn a hole in the film. Also notice that I don't come too close to the top, because it will actually shrink the top of your film. I use Scotch tape again, your choice.
Gift basket's better than a gift because it's a basket full of gifts.
There. Doesn't that look exciting? This is a sparkling night, isn't it? I have something called stickies, and I'll talk to you about those later. I'm just going to tear one in half. And I have some gold mylar here, and I'm just gonna
Yeah, get it.
dip it right in the gold mylar.
Yeah.
And then we're just gonna stick it right on the front of our basket for that extra added little touch. If you have too much, it's not a big deal. We can always cut it off. And let's just put it right in the center for an extra added touch. And there you go, a sparkling night. And you'll sparkle when you're finished with it. Now, what's next?